This is going to be an extremely interesting panel, and I want to go ahead and invite the participants up here now. Curtis Morgan, who is, I guess you'd call him our freight rail expert at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. You've been doing that for more than a year or two. Is the moderator of this next session. And we're going to be talking about emerging ports and industrial rail parks. There's something kind of magical happening in Texas over the last decade or two. A lot of these cities are seeing the benefits of putting together some acreage, getting large industrial companies, medium, small, together for rail shipping. And we're able to get some trucks off of our roads that we're not going to be beating them down quite so bad. And a lot of cities now are interested in developing industrial rail parks. On the other hand, we're finding a lot of ports that are being developed. And today we're going to hear from the Port of Corpus Christi with Omar Garcia, RCR Rail Park Development with Hydie McAlister, and Eric Watkins from Union Pacific Railroad. So I want to go ahead and introduce first Curtis Morgan.
Thanks, Peter. It's always good to be here at the Southwest Rail Conference each year. As Peter said, this is an august panel, a lot of great people. Thank him for putting that together for us this year. We're going to follow the order on the agenda because I think that's how they have the presentations pulled up. I'll introduce all three of the panelists, and then each one in turn will give some remarks, and then we'll follow up with questions from the audience, and I have some backup questions if those aren't forthcoming. So first, I'll introduce Mr. Eric Watkins. He's the General Director of Economic and Industrial Development at the Union Pacific Railroad Company. He's based in their Spring, Texas office. He's been in that role for 14 years. He leads a team of regional experts that provide guidance, support, and rail project management for establishing rail service on the Union Pacific Rail Network. Prior to that, he's been at the railroad for a total of 33 years, I think he told me this morning, with SP before moving over to UP. After Eric, we got Ms. Hydie McAlister. She's a seasoned professional working in commercial real estate since 1991 with the McAlister Company. In 2008, she founded McAlister Investment Real Estate, was in a role in that, and moved that diversified investment landscape within the McAlister family of businesses. Her foresight continued to manifest with the establishment of McAlister Assets in 2018, which introduced new rail-served opportunities to the market. Throughout her career, Hydie has been instrumental in acquiring over $300 million in land assets. Her leadership from February 2018 to 2022 led to successful raising of over $139 million in private equity, earmarked for long-term capital gain and land holdings and the development of rail-served industrial parks. Her portfolio of achievements includes the structuring, building, and management of industrial Class 1 rail-served parks. Notably, she's developed two significant rail parks here in Texas, a 137-acre and a 755-acre site. Within the RCR Taylor Park, which she'll talk about in a few minutes, she's adeptly negotiated and closed land transactions exceeding $69 million with end users. Over the last 5 years, her vision and determination have brought the Hempstead and Taylor Parks in Texas from concept to reality. She's set to propel McAlister Assets into new business sectors, promising continued growth and innovation. And next we have Mr. Omar Garcia. He's the Chief External Affairs Officer for the Port of Corpus Christi, which is currently ranked as the largest U.S. port in total revenue tonnage, as well as the nation's leading energy export gateway. In this role, he liaises between the Port of Corpus Christi executive leadership and public advocacy groups, local and national elected officials, business leaders, community members, and regional stakeholders. He manages all external affairs for the Port of Corpus Christi and is responsible for oversight, guidance, and development and community relations. He oversees more than $5 million of community giving annually and coordinates national media outreach campaigns for the Port of Corpus Christi. He has a much longer resume here, many roles, has done economic development for the last 15 to 20 years, and we look forward to hearing from each one of the panelists.
Good morning. I am truly excited to be here. I love it. Anytime I get the opportunity to talk about economic development, industrial development, particularly if we're going to be talking about how we can work to develop new industries. So that's the thing that gets me out of bed every morning. It's what's exciting. It's not always exciting to everybody else as it is to me. Like when I talk to my kids, I'm like, I'm working on this exciting new project. It's going to be a brand new steel mill. They're like, Dad, I don't care. But I am excited to be in a group or in a room full of people who do find that exciting. So let's talk about it a little bit. So first, let me talk about Union Pacific Railroad and our key strategies, right? Safety, service, and operational excellence lead to growth. What do I mean by that? We want to be the safest railroad in the industry, and we are going to be, and we work every day to do that, to make sure everyone gets home safely. That's the most important thing we do on that railroad. Service, making sure we deliver what we sold. When we tell a customer we're going to do something, we want to make sure we deliver on that promise. Making sure we're driving decisions down to the people who do that work, right? The person who's running the train knows the most about how to operate that train. We really focus on doing that. We also do what we call sweat the assets, right? I want to have the right number of assets with a surge capacity for when something happens. And really making sure we're working with the people. People drive the railroad. The people who do the work are the people that make the railroad happen. Now, let's talk about finding the right site. How many of you have had to look for a home? And that home you want is the one you want. Every site and every customer is different. Every customer is looking for a different site. So from the UP perspective, we're looking at everything from finding a place with a guy who wants to transload a car of mulch to a huge facility like what Hydie has, where they're doing unit trains. They've got multiple large customers and doing manufacturing. So I'm trying to find the right site for all of those customers. So a couple of tools we have at UP to be able to help do that. One of them is our SST, or what we call our Site Solution Tool. So what that is that's really like a Zillow. We work with a company called Resimplify, and what it does is it takes all of the MSL listed properties that are within about a half mile of my railroad, and we put it on there. We go through some of those and take a look at them and say, hey, this probably isn't going to work, right? This is really a Burger King. I'm not going to rail serve that. But what we do is we work with communities to say, hey, look, if you list your site and it's within a half mile of my railroad, right, we'll work with you, and that's what we're going to use for customers to come in and look and try to find sites. So I'm always looking for the next community, the next developer, the next person who wants to put together a site and work with me on rail. We've also got what we call our focus site. So that's really my version of what I'm going to call a certified site. So certified sites, everybody, there is no definition of a certified site. Everybody has their own. Ours is really focused around rail. The one thing I know really, really well after 35 years is rail. So one of the things we focus on the focus site is making sure we know from a rail perspective that site can be served quickly. We also do some work in terms of making sure they have the right utilities, making sure they've got workforce, making sure we've got a community that supports us, making sure we've got a landowner that's willing to work with us on price and sale and put it all together. So those are really the places where we've kind of gone above and beyond and where we think we can locate customers to get speed to market very quickly. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later because I've got a great example that's right here in the area that I'd like all of you to take a look at. Last, we formed something about 2 years ago called the Union Pacific Development Company, UPDC. And what that is Union Pacific Railroad has properties that we own that where we're going to try to help develop that a little bit. Because there are some of our customers who kind of need specialty things, and we can work out special deals with them in terms of locating near our rail lines or working with them. So we have a couple of sites here, like our San Antonio intermodal facility that we're developing, and then our Rosenberg property that are going to be part of our UPDC properties, where Union Pacific Railroad owns that property, and we're able to kind of work with customers to work out special deals if they want to locate on those sites. So a little bit more about the SST. Like I said, it's really our version of Zillow. We've got over 7,000 sites on there. And like I said, what it really is a place for communities to be able to promote their sites. We go out and, like I said, capture everything that's within about a mile of our site. As long as we think it can be rail served, we'll put it on there. And you know, you're searching in the middle of the night looking for your next rail serve site, your new transload, your new distribution center, your new lumber distribution, you can go here and find that. And when we're talking to customers, they go there and they use that to kind of look at it, what I would call self-help, right? A lot of us do that today when we're looking for a house. We go on the, Zillow or HAR, and that's what we do. So we love this. We think it's also a great place for communities to work with us, right? If you've got a site and you're saying, hey, Eric, man, I think we got this great site. Hey, great. Is it listed? Great, we'll pick it up. Hey, talk to me some more about it. We'll do some more development. Maybe it can become a focus site. Focus sites. So we have about 25 plus of these, and they have been a great success. Over the past couple of years, we've located over a dozen new customers at our focus sites. We've even had a couple where we filled them up and we had to say, well, we're full. The best example of a focus site I can give you is right on I-45. So if you go down I-45, right down Wilmer and Hutchins, off to the right there, you'll see our Dallas Intermodal facility. Right behind that is Prime Point. Let me click over here. So Prime Point is about 2,000 acres of property. You can see the sign there, and we have located great new customers there. So we've got KTN, we've got Chick-fil-A. I was excited about that. I went there last year, and I'm like, I'm a big supporter of you guys, right? Can I get free sandwiches for a year? I'm like, I thought that should be part of the deal. I tried to write that in there. But it's a great place where we have an opportunity to not only move rail cars, but we have our intermodal facility. So that's a great example of what we have a focus on, and it's a great example for what we're trying to find. New communities that want to work with us where we can develop the rail and have a partnership to locate customers. So Prime Point's been there for about 10 years. When I started looking at it, it was a sorghum field. Today, I'm guessing we probably have 8 to 10 rail customers, and I have probably double that in terms of intermodal customers. So last thing I want to talk about, like I said, our UPDC, which are Union Pacific Development Company. There are lots of different places where we're looking, like I said, where UP owns property, where we're going to set that up, and we're willing to work with customers to try to locate for rail. So those are places where we own it, and like I said, we can do kind of special deals for customers who want to locate on us. Maybe there's a long-term lease, maybe it's a sale. We're willing to do any of that in order to try to help locate a customer at that site. So if you have any questions, please come up and see me. You can also find us on LinkedIn, X, and at the UP website. We're always looking for new sites. People always ask me, hey, Eric, what's the most important thing I should know about working with Union Pacific Railroad when it comes to development property? If there's nothing else you remember today from me, from my talk here today, remember this. Talk to us early. It's not rocket science. I'm not Elon Musk, right? I'm not trying to develop the next SpaceX, but it is rail science. And what I'll say is developing the rail service and how the rail is going to get into your property is important. Rail doesn't make 90-degree turns. We do have certain limitations as to how we can get to your property and what we need to get to your property and how we can lay it out. Do the rail first, and that can tell you where everything else goes. Do the rail first, I can help you deliver your building materials. Do the rail first, and you'll know where everything else will go and what you can do on your site. So again, Eric Watkins, if there's anything I can do to help, if there's anything you want to ask about rail, please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Hydie, if you could.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hydie McAlister, McAlister Assets and RCR Rail Co. It's really fun to share my story to a big group. I'm usually just talking to one or two people or a customer who's coming to the park and telling us how we came to be. Did not take the normal path. You don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I'm going to be in the rail industry and develop rail. Most people look at you like your head's spinning around. So, but here we are, and we did take the approach of build it, they will come. Again, not a normal way to do it, but that was how we stepped into the business. I'm just going to tell our story. I've got some slides to show you the progression of our two parks. But to Eric's point, yes, step number one, you meet with them, and they say yes or no, and then you go from there. So our first park, to the right, there we go. This is the lower central Texas. The yellow boxes you see are Houston, San Antonio, and Fort Worth. You've got Alliance in Fort Worth and TGS down in Houston, and the Mission down in San Antonio. So when we looked at this, I come from a real estate background. I'll start there. Commercial real estate has been our business since the early 70s. And the first foray into rail was because of this location, Highway 6 and 290 northwest of Houston, about 22 miles outside of the Grand Parkway. The last acquisition we made before my father passed in 2018 were the three corners, which is the photograph on the right, 265 acres, I guess, but the northwest corner sat on the Union Pacific rail line, which you see in the photo on the left. One of the investors, we're all private LP money, we're not funded by any government entity. Their family had a sand play they were trying to do, so she introduced us to her rail engineer. And in real estate, if you're buying a corner, you go look at all the other corners. So I asked the rail engineer, I said, well, where's my competitors? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, where are my other competitors? And what we call it in our family business is a hole in the donut. Found the hole in the donut, asking where to go, where the next development should be, and how to bring business to an area that's not rail served. This particular track fit that question, or answered that question, sorry. Along with this track, we were also introduced to the property in Taylor, and I ended up buying both properties into rail development partnerships on the same day. We did break ground on this track and opened up right before COVID. Not a great time to open a new logistics park, but we're still here and we're kicking, and Union Pacific's been great. This is a single-served site. And I'm just going to flip through so you guys can see what we went through to develop it. It was a cattle ranch, but had great access. That's also something you look for. This was on 2 highways with good visibility, but probably not a good place for retail due to the overpasses. So the industrial piece worked really well. In the city of Hempstead, if anyone's familiar with that area, Lawrence Marshall was there for a long time. They closed down. I live 4 miles south of here. The goal was to bring industry to Hempstead. A little bit of selfishness there, but wanted to replace the workforce that Lawrence Marshall, they lost about 400 jobs. So I'll just walk through so you guys can see the progression. On the photo on the left, you'll see us clearing out the track. I do like trees, so I had to learn that rail and trees don't get along. The rail won, that's okay. I think there's 1 tree left on the whole property now, but so be it. To the right, you see the crew of our rail engineers, our ITD. We use WT Byler as our construction, and then you see some of the investors that are in the project. We did make the decision to work with our ITD and WT Byler, not necessarily on price. Neither one is what you would call a cheap subcontractor, but they build right. So if you are in the construction business for rail, it was important to our customers when I would talk to them and they would say, well, who designed it? And I would say, well, RITD did it. RITD did. And they go, okay, well, we know it's designed correct. So that took that off the table. Well, who's building it for you? W.T. Byler. Okay, well, they know all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed, so construction was done right. And that, in the beginning, really helped us open up our park, because as I said, we built it, they will come. We did not open our doors with the customer. That's not normal. But that's the way we went. Coming from real estate, all of my parks are underwritten by the real estate. Should something happen and the park not be a success, I'm still sitting on a valuable piece of dirt that's been utilitized, and I can exit that way and take care of my investors. So being private equity, you have to look at your exit strategy. Hempstead under construction, you can see on the north end, which is the left side, where the black and white is, that's to be the transload. It left about 70 acres in the middle for industrial. We have not platted it. We've left it open, so a 5-acre user or a 1-acre user or a 40-acre user could come in and purchase this area and design and do their layout, and then we would design the rail into their park. So this park is both my parks are transload and manifest served. So we offer both services. I believe one of your questions was the types of services that parks can do. You need to know the market, know what is needed. This is the finished area. At the top end, we did our office in a scale. Having a scale on site, if you're doing any truckloads, is important and convenient for them. We do charge for that service, so that's everything in there is fee-based. A customer walks in and says, I need this, this, and this, and we say, great, and we negotiate to what works for them. Whoops. Go back one. So up here you see all of the light green. We handled a pipe project going on. Hempstead has been very project-driven. Customers are coming. I will admit the election did help our projects in a favorable way. So activity is picking up. You can see here on the south end that we did put in some drainage. I don't know if you can see the Y that's closer to the rail on the south end. So if someone buys in our park, we did handle the regional detention. So if you're a developer, if someone wants to come in and I want to put in a 100,000 square foot building, they need so much detention on site. We handle that inside both our parks. So if someone's buying 20 acres from me, other than a setback line imposed by the city, they have 100% use of the land that they're purchasing from us. A zoom in of our transload, we handle a lot of lumber. And that's a site layout that we've done. We've done about 30 of them, maybe? Yeah, there's a few of them. Every day you get a phone call and something changes. Someone says, oh, I need this. And you're like, great, and you go redesign that. So buyer beware on that one if you go to be a developer. But this was a design that we did do. The purple at the southern end is not rail served. Rail doesn't do 90 degrees, so we did have a pocket that wasn't, but we've been trying to market to maybe a lower volume rail user who could then use the transload and then shuttle their product back and forth. So that's just got to be creative. The original design for this track actually had all of the buildings going the other way, southeast, northwest. But then when we came in and got our approvals and everything from Union Pacific, this design worked better for their flow on that line. Oh, wrong. Okay, moving on to Taylor. It's a little more exciting. It's a bigger project. It is a little different when we looked at it. The first project is Union Pacific served only. This particular project is also served by the BNSF. That is a great advantage to our customers. They really appreciate that service and all things for them. We went into this project. This is northeast of Austin, between Hutto and Taylor. It's 755 acres. You do see the Samsung campus next to it. We were there first, to say that. And Tesla was not there either. So we bought this property in the summer of 2018, sat on it for a little bit, and we actually did our construction during COVID. So we were able to open coming out of that and capture capture all the momentum created by Tesla and Samsung coming to town. My original model did not have an auto ramp in it. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that business. I had never heard of it before. But in talking to Tesla, we were able to negotiate with them, and we do ship all of the cars that go out by rail and not by truck out of the Tesla plant in Austin. Since then, we also are working with other OEMs. We handle General Motors, Nissan, anyone else. We get both shipping and receiving of automobiles. So in the flow of running a project like that inside the bigger project, having rail cars, the Union Pacific mission site down in San Antonio, the empty rail cars went there, and we were only shipping out. Now that we're shipping and receiving, the flow of rail cars is much better, and I think it works better for all parties. This particular park, again, was built with Build It, They Will Come. They came, and we're super happy. So the business model here, there we go. It was a cornfield, nothing there. There was absolutely nothing between Hutto and Taylor. If you drive that stretch of 79 now, it looks very, very different. A lot of data centers are coming in. There's some big industrial coming in. When we met with Union Pacific in the beginning, and the map that you showed earlier on your first slide, they pulled down Texas, and man, hole in the donut, boom, nothing in Central Texas. And I was like, okay. And so this property came along to me, and it just seemed like if we could bring rail to the Austin market that was underserved, eventually it should work. So I believe it's working. But I'll just walk you through what that looks like as we developed it. We went in originally and just put in our interchange and a couple of lines of transload, built a Y. Again, this is a large line for Union Pacific. It runs eventually all the way over to Long Beach, and it goes to Hearn, one of your major hubs. This is the very beginning. You can see all the corn. You can imagine Field of Dreams. I don't know if anyone has seen that movie, but it's a little bit of that. We would drive down to the end and go, this is kind of surreal. Again, no one just jumps into rail development, but ignorance is bliss sometimes, I guess. Here we go as the development came. So the original business model for this was build a little bit, develop, sell a building, and work our way around the project. Tesla came, then Samsung came, and that really changed what we had to do, and we ended up having to submit site development plans to the city. And we did $37 million of public infrastructure, funded by no one, just us, and had to do all of that before we could start selling the land that was mentioned in the intro. This is how it grew. If you see the photo, to the right side of the left photo, you see a large yellow area, and then in the right one, you'll see that's the beginning of the auto ramp construction along with the transload. You can see more development happening. Thank God for Google Earth, right? So the southwest corner of this, Partners Development purchased it. Again, I mentioned the Austin market was underserved by Dock High Distribution. They came in and did a spec building, 366,000 square foot. This is the construction of that. Just to the north of it, whoops, I guess it's not in there, sorry. To the north of this building, which on the photo on the left is that grass that's on the left, they are building a build-to-suit building for Tesla. They'll be receiving all of their coiled steel into that building. So there's now 2 buildings inside the park, which is super exciting. In this photo, you can see all the site improvement and detention work has been done. It was a very heavy lift for us, but it really makes the property more marketable. I just a week ago got a call from a gentleman from overseas. They're looking for 100 acres, and they found our flyer on the Union Pacific website, which was kind of fun. That if that company does come to fruition, then we will have sold all of our land to third parties. We are maintaining some land under us for long-term ground leases, just for resale reasons when the investors are ready to sell the park. That shows completed auto ramp. The photo on the right is that specialty build-to-suit building. And this is the site plan that we have today. There are 3 buckets of businesses that RCR will retain. So if you're looking at developing something, you've got to think about, I tell people, you put your money in the kitchen and the bathroom in your house. We put it into the auto ramp and the transload and some long-term ground leases so that when we have an exit strategy, we have a way to monetize that for the investors. The rest of the balance of the property, some of those tracks are rail served, some of them are not. Again, rail can only turn at certain angles, so you have to be aware of that. And that's it. That's our story. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Omar?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Omar Garcia. I'm the Chief External Affairs Officer at the Port of Corpus Christi. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. And I want to give you a snapshot on the Port of Corpus Christi, what we do, where we've been, and how rail plays such an important role, not only today, but in our future. So, you know, the Port of Corpus Christi is over 100 years old. We've been in operation for exactly 103 years. Started off as an agricultural port in 1922 to help the local farmers, in particular the King Ranch down in South Texas. Then evolved into a refining port with Valero, Citgo, and Flint Hills kind of anchoring the growth at the port for many years, as well as other commodities. But most recently, we've been the energy export port of the Americas the last 10 years, and I'll go into some numbers here in a second, but that's been our major growth in the last 10 years. But ports are very unique in Texas. There are 18 seaports in Texas from the border of Texas and Louisiana all the way to Brownsville in Mexico. We are government entities, but we are political subdivisions of the state. We follow the Texas Water Code. Ports are governed at the local level. In some instances, those commissioners are elected. In our case, they're appointed by the city and the counties that we operate in. We are a large industrial energy hub and gateway to global markets. We're a landowner, a land developer, and a landlord. And so ports make money 3 different ways. Number one is through land leases. We manage about 30,000 acres at the Port of Corpus Christi in the 2 counties that we serve. And then we make money by the ships that come in and that dock at the port based on the length of the size and how long they stay at the dock. And then, of course, through our tariffs, what commodities are being imported and exported through our docks. Those are the 3 main ways the ports make money. But our biggest role at the Port of Corpus Christi is to maintain a competitive waterway, updated infrastructure, and rail is certainly a huge part of that. We've invested over $1 billion in the last, say, 10 years on new infrastructure, which has really made the Port of Corpus Christi extremely competitive. So just a couple of very cool facts that you can share with your colleagues and with your neighbors. Port of Corpus Christi is the #1 crude oil export gateway. On any given day, we export anywhere from 2.3 to 3 million barrels of crude every single day leave the Port of Corpus Christi. That crude is coming directly from West Texas, from the Permian Basin and the Eagle Ford Shale in South Texas. That crude is going to all our trading partners around the world. 25% of all commodities that leave the Port of Corpus Christi go to Europe, in particular the Port of Rotterdam. So we play a very important role in the global economy in terms of energy security. We're the 2nd largest port in LNG exports, liquefied natural gas, primarily that is Cheniere. And the most interesting one of all of this is we're the 3rd largest export port in the world. Think about that. The Port of Corpus Christi is the 3rd largest exporter of crude in the world behind Saudi Arabia and Iraq. That's an amazing statistic because 10 years ago, we would have never thought that that would have ever happened. And so right now, we're enjoying over $65 billion of new investment and economic development to the region, 90,000 new jobs to an area that had not seen a lot of growth in the previous 2 decades. And so what changed? Why did we see those fortunes change? Why are we seeing those billions of dollars of economic development? It was a simple thing that happened in D.C. The export ban was lifted in 2015, which allowed domestically produced crude to be exported to other parts of the world. Prior to that, it had not been allowed. That ban had been in place since the Carter administration. That changed the fortunes of Corpus Christi and the coastal Bend region for the better. And we continue to see those benefits. We continue to see economic development. Our pipeline is full, and we can expect to see that $65 billion number to continue to rise in the next several years. So as I kind of lead into our rail, one of the biggest projects that we will have ever worked on and will ever work on at the Port of Corpus Christi is our Corpus Christi Ship Channel Improvement Project. And that is simply to take the depth of our channel from 47 feet to 54. And you probably ask, why is that important? Why is those couple of feet a big difference? Well, it helps bring in larger ships. It helps diversify cargoes and commodities. It is a big competitive advantage that once this project is done, which will be done, I'm happy to say, in the next 6 weeks, it is going to give us the deepest and widest port in the entire Texas Gulf Coast. So that is a huge coup to the Port of Corpus Christi for future business opportunities. This deepening project has taken over 35 years. This project started in 1990 under Bush 41. Heck, the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls in the early 90s. You know, that's how long it's been. So I can say that joke in Dallas, and I am a Cowboy fan. But that's how long it's been. This has touched both Bushes, Obama, Biden, and Trump. We got our first dollar under President Trump's first administration. So happy to report that this project is just about done, but this is going to diversify the Port of Corpus Christi and bring additional opportunities that we never thought possible. So as we go into our rail, while our growth has been liquids in the oil and gas industry, we know that the future is going to be cargo diversification. It's going to be additional light manufacturing, nearshoring. And so rail is going to play a huge role in that. And so you see some numbers there. The number of rail cars moved in 2024, that's almost a 75% increase from the year prior. So we're seeing a lot of rail movements in the Port of Corpus. We've added several miles of track since 2014, and that demand has been customer driven. It's not we will build it and they will come. That in particular has been customer driven at the Port of Corpus Christi. You look at our location. Everybody always talks about Brownsville and Laredo and Houston and San Antonio. Corpus is in a prime location to reap the benefits of additional rail and economic development. You know, we've got direct access to Laredo and to Mexico. We're connected to San Antonio, connected to Brownsville. We're blessed to have the 3 Class 1s operating in the Port of Corpus Christi, Union Pacific, BNSF, and obviously CPKC. And we have interstate access on Interstate 37 and I-69 to Houston. So we're well positioned for more growth. A little bit about the Port of Corpus, and you see that's a picture of our inner harbor and the Nueces rail yard. So we have a short line operator that's it's short for TCBR, which is operated by Watco. They are our short line operator. Mentioned we are served by the 3 Class 1 railroads, and then a little bit about our unit trains, our track length, what we have. We have a bulk material facility we have ship loaders, we have cranes there at the Port of Corpus Christi that we couldn't do any of that without the rail. But we're looking to expand. We still have land available to add more capacity and to add more commodity diversification as well. Rincon Industrial Park, you see here a little bit the ship channel, the entrance of the ship channel. You see to the north on the top side, some laydown space. We have become the go-to port for wind components and wind blades. That has been a big part of our growth segment, and we're going to continue to see that because we've invested millions of dollars to have world-class laydown space. And you see that space, that picture. If it looks clean, if it looks pristine, it's because it is. It is a world-class facility for project cargo laydown space, but in particular for the wind. And so we're very excited about the opportunities with some of our Class 1s and bringing in additional wind cargoes to the Port of Corpus Christi. So this is where, when you look at the port, you look at where do we see our growth, how can rail play a vital role in that? So as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the port is a landlord port. We don't operate terminals, we don't operate docks, we operate one crane, one bulk terminal, but the bulk of our revenue is generated through land leases. And so far as I know, they're not making more land, right? So we've had to go acquire more land to make sure that we're ready for growth. And so what we've done is accumulate nearly 2,000 acres in the western side of Nueces County that has access to I-69, I-37, and Highway 44, which is on the main lines of Union Pacific and CPKC. And so we see this as an opportunity to grow our rail capabilities. The Nueces Rail Yard is a bit congested. We want to see our rail grow. But this is an area that is in an industrial area. It's away from neighborhoods. This area is used to growth. It's used to economic development. And we see this as an opportunity to bring in containers, reshoring, light manufacturing, and additional agricultural movements. With the deeper channel at a depth of 54, we are now seeing container lines calling the Port of Corpus Christi. This is something that I thought we would never see in our lifetime, that the Port of Corpus Christi would be considered for containers, because we're so focused on the oil and gas industry. Now, we'll never become the Port of Houston where they move 5 to 6 million TEUs, but you could see the Port of Corpus Christi as a satellite operation for container movements as Houston becomes more congested. Latin America wants to come to Texas. They don't want to go to Miami. The ports in Mexico become congested as well too. Corpus is in a prime location, and all of that is because of the rail capabilities that we have. So we look forward to working with my friend here, Eric, and hopefully the Union Pacific can be a big part of this growth in Robstown. So appreciate your time, and if there's anything that you need from the Port of Corpus Christi, please feel free to contact me directly. And our Director of Commercial and Business Development, Yuji Takizawa, is here. He is an expert at rail and can help with any of your needs. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I covered a lot of the questions that I had. So are there any questions from the audience first before we kind of go to some of the questions that I was going to ask as follow-up? If you have a question, please feel free to go to the microphone in the middle of the room. But one of the things that y'all talked about throughout each of your presentations was location and development factors. After hearing your colleagues speak, are there any other ones that maybe you'd like to point out as far as location or things that you're looking for in trying to put these parks in place, rail yards?
I think obviously for us, it was the availability of the land, the cost competitiveness, and obviously making sure that it was close to rail. But for us, in our growth story, we have, I'll use the word struggled with permitting and community pushback. So making sure that we found land in an area that we knew that would be suitable for this kind of development was key to make sure that what I just showed in Robstown will be a success, because the community pushback is real. People have killed projects because of they don't want more industry growth. They don't want to see anything that's bad for the environment. The not in my backyard movement, the NIMBY, is very prevalent all over the state of Texas. I mean, we joke we probably couldn't even permit a dog park right now. But so location is very important to make sure that we can get those permits in a timely manner.
Again, what I would say, kind of echoing what you said, is really, if you want to build a rail-served industrial park, you've got to have the property, right? That's the first thing. But I would say if you're a community who wants to develop a rail-served industrial park, right, where is that property? How can you put that together? Getting the property owners together and saying, hey, yes, we agree, making sure it's in the right proximity to the railroad. Again, what you said, getting the permitting and set aside, right? No one wants an industrial park right next to a school. No one wants them right next to their houses. So it's critical that you think ahead and think early about where that park's going to be. And here's what you need to understand. It takes time, right? They don't just pop up in 18 months. It takes a couple years. So planning out ahead of time and having that developed is important. And when customers come to us, they want to have places like what Hydie has, right? Which she said she built it and they will come. That's not the norm. But if you can at least have a rail plan designed, if you know how you're going to get your roads, you know how your utilities are going to be laid out, and you have a set timeline, that is what customers are looking for. Because when they come to me, they want to know, Eric, can I ship the first rail car in 18 months? Right? So that's why Hydie has an advantage, or people who have that setup have an advantage. So if you want to do a rail-served industrial park, get your property together, get your utilities together, get your roads, get your rail. And if you can't build it all, you have to at least have a plan for it so that when the customer comes to you, you know what that time frame is. And more importantly, you can deliver on that time frame.
I would say from our window, being in a private equity and developing these, on the real estate side, location, 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 obviously, that is the underlying, how I underwrite my projects. But Eric's actually correct. There's many, many projects that are announced, but they don't do all the work, and they never happen because a customer comes and says, well, when will this happen? And they just can't pull the capital together. So I was in a unique position to be able to pull the capital together, find the real estate, and then it also be approved by both Class 1s or Union Pacific to bring in the customers. So from the private equity side, it's being able to justify the capital investment. It's not for the faint of heart to do this.
And then just as a follow-up to Eric, there are places on the railroad. Just because there's a railroad there doesn't mean that every place is a great place to develop a park like this on the railroad. I don't know if you want to talk further on that, but there are places that are busy on the railroad with other activities or connections that might not be the best place.
So this is the toughest part of my job, right? I get phone calls all the time from people that says, hey, my property is right up against your main line. So that's the equivalent of me saying, hey, I'd like to put a curb cut on I-45. So again, goes back to my previous statement about not being rocket science. It's rail science. One of the things you have to have right, our main line is like our interstate. I've got to have a way to be able to get off of that interstate and be able to continue to allow traffic to flow. So just because you're right up against my main line doesn't mean that's the easiest place. I can work and do anything to help you get connected, but that's why I say come to me early, right? And I can tell you, hey, what needs to be done. When you saw Hydie's, you had an example where she had a Y. So I can come in both directions and get off, and you see she has that big, long track that goes all the way into her property. What that allows me to do is get my train off of the main line, clear up into her facility, and now I'm continuing to run trains, right? So in most places, I've only got one line, and I don't have a lot of directional lines here in Texas. I'm going both ways. So if I've got a 10,000-foot train, right, and I'm stopped, that means traffic going either way, the other way isn't. So really it's about location, 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 and why I say come to me early, and let's talk about what the right infrastructure is in order to get you consistent, reliable, and safe rail service. And I see my coworker in the back there. Let me give a shout out to Sheremy. She's in the back there. So she is the person who handles kind of this Dallas area. So if you have any questions about rail, she is a rail expert also.
Okay, and Omar, a follow-up with you. You talked about the port having some available land at Port of Corpus Christi. That's not always true at all ports. Obviously, you're land constrained generally at the port, and that's why you've started looking over to Robstown area for additional development. Do you have any thoughts on that as far as generally for port-related rail yard development and managing property?
So managing property certainly has its challenges. How many of you have been to Corpus in the last 2 years? Happy to tell you that the bridge is done. The ribbon cutting is May 10th, so that bridge will finally be completed, which will be a game changer. But as part of that, we had to acquire basically a neighborhood that had been in existence for 80 years. And we spent over $25 million acquiring that property to help with TxDOT. Now, why do I mention that? Because that is great laydown space that is on the south side of our inner harbor that could be connected to additional rail, especially as we look at the container opportunities. You know, if that becomes a possibility, we have a Cargo Dock 8 that's right next to our executive administration building that backs up into that neighborhood with connectivity to rail and direct access to Robstown. So managing land continues to be something that evolves, but with that property that we bought and that new bridge where the neighborhood that we had to buy, the right-of-way of the bridge went through it, you still have people that don't want to leave. And so the city has shut down city services, but there are people still living there. So we're still trying to work with them, making sure that potentially we can reach a settlement and buy them out. But this was a three-party agreement with TxDOT and the Federal Highway Administration and the Port of Corpus Christi.
Thanks. Any other questions from the audience? Still, there's opportunity for that. Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking questions. All right, the next area that we talked a little bit beforehand about was best practices on providing rail service. We talked about Class 1 versus short line. I think all y'all have experience, at least the two gentlemen do, with operating with short line and Class 1. Any points on that, Eric?
So the short runs are really our partners, right? I think of they're kind of the fingers on my arm. We get it there, and they're there to help us with the last mile. I know with the Port of Corpus Christi, they do a lot of work for us in helping develop customers. They build unit trains. They do switching for us. So, we value our short line partners. We work with them all the time. Short lines have the capability to get into kind of smaller areas and really extend our reach. So we're very excited to work with, like I said, the short lines that we have.
It's very simple for the ports. We can't provide a rail service without the short line, and that's really for all ports. I mean, they to your point, Eric, they're the last mile. They make all the movements. They work with us for future growth, future customers. I mean, if we don't speak to them daily, it's probably twice a day. I mean, that's how important a short line is to the Port of Corpus Christi and all ports.
Heidi, do you have anything on that?
Yes, in our world, both my parks operate as a short line, although we did not set them up as a short line due to the regulatory and probably expense to the customer. We chose to not do that. However, I've looked at some property that are on short lines, and we're still trying to pull one of them together. So definitely serves a purpose, and I don't have, I would look at property on a short line just like I would on a main line.
There's not a magic bullet. It's stuff that has to be developed based on the variety of factors.
No, for us, it would be the customers in the area, the economic drive for the return for my investors. It's pretty simple box to check. It's not simple to do it, but it's a very simple box that you have to answer the question for.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? All right, we got a volunteer here.
I volunteer. Eric, so you talk about, encouraging new partnerships, but nobody's going to come in and be able to build a unit train. So what's like when people are getting, very few customers are starting out an operation, or if they're reshoring, how many carloads do people have to put together before they can get service from Union Pacific?
One. So like I talked about in the beginning, right, I look for a range of different sites, right? I have everything from, hey, I want to lease a track in the UP and I want to unload a carload of mulch, to, hey, I do want to do that unit train. So that's why I don't have just one solution. I've got track that I can lease. I've got places where there are existing industrial parks. There are places where there are old buildings right here. If you go to Great Southwest North, Great Southwest South, there are lots of old buildings out there that I'm promoting every day that I think would be great to revitalize. They're existing, I'm going to say, warehouses that have rail that could be served, where we locate customers all the time. We do a lot of those type of projects where we have customers that come in that say, I'm looking for an old 75,000 square foot or 200,000 square foot warehouse, right? And it's got an old line behind it. Hey, great, we'll work with you. We'll tell you what needs to be done. We can revitalize that line, and now you use an existing rail service to get in there. That's actually the fastest way for you to get rail service, right? If you're looking and you want to have rail service in the next 3 months, right? We'll work with you. We'll try to find a place where there used to be rail service. There's an existing rail line. There's an existing building that, hey, you can get in there and get rail service.
But
So
isn't
have to be-
carload service down for the Class 1s? And it seems like there's been a lot of talk about, the Class 1s aren't currently particularly famous for, like, getting trucks off the road. There's been a lot of, sense of, that y'all are, demarketing shorter hauls and smaller customers, and you're forcing folks to use trucks rather than getting trucks off the road. I mean, we'd love to see more rail-served developments, and I like hearing what you're saying, but it's not what I I mean, hearing around the country, you know, and I want to be convinced otherwise.
Well, let me tell you again. What I would tell you is we're always looking for new car loads. That's what I do every single day. That's what my job is. And I will tell you, I get asked about that all the time. And I encourage every customer, from the single carload to 30,000 carloads, to give me a call and give me the opportunity to work with you to find a location. Well, that's exactly right. So again, I love the question where you say, how many cars does it take for you to be interested? One, right? Every single carload. I'm scrapping for every single carload I can find. And again, I have a range of different solutions. It's just like when you're buying a house, like I said, somebody's going to want that tiny house, which I don't understand. I hit my head, to everything you want from a mansion. So if you come to me and say, hey, Eric, I want to try to find some place where I can transload one car a week, I've got team tracks where you can do that, where they're public use. Or again, I've got property that's 2,000 acres where you can build your brand new manufacturing plant, like Hydie's done where we seek Samsung. So I say, we're looking for everything you have. Bring it on. Call me.
Okay, I'll ask another one. How about example projects in Texas, the Southwest, or nationally that you see as lessons learned or things where you can learn that maybe aren't on your particular projects, but other places? Anything like that?
I'm going to go back to this only because I'm thinking about a Chick-fil-A sandwich right now. That was a great opportunity with us. We worked for Chick-fil-A probably for about 2 years at our Prime Point site. They came to us early, and I think this was their first vertically integrated site where they were going to have their own cold storage. And they had a lot of questions about rail and how it works and how do we switch and when do they get served. And I would say we did a great job with them. Jeremy was involved in that project back there. And it took a while for us to convince them how to do rail. And what I learned from that is helping our customers understand Rail 101, right? I've lived rail 33 years. It's second nature to me. What I learned is what seems simple to me is not simple to everybody else. And making sure you sit down and talk with customers and help them understand what it takes to get rail, what the benefit was of locating inside of an industrial park where you don't have to deal with the infrastructure getting off the main line. You're just taking care of your single switch, and that this is going to help you help us and help you provide a level of service that's going to continue to help us grow is one of the things I learned. I also learned helping customers understand the importance of building for the future, right? If you need 5 cars today, you need to plan for 10. Nobody starts a brand new business, spends millions of dollars on a plant to stay the same. They want to grow. So build for that growth, build your rail for that growth, build your plant for that growth.
I learned that lesson in the beginning because we were just going to open, and Brandon Musser at RITD, he's like, no, you need to think about 20 years down the road when you have all your buildings and all your customers are here. We're very big on service. That's what we try and differentiate ourselves with in our locations, but we also understand that the class 1s are intimidating. They're big, and there's a bunch of departments, and so we try to, when a customer comes in, say, what is it you need? How can we help you, and who can we introduce you to inside the class 1 that can hold your hand and help you walk through the process, because it is daunting. So service, I think, is big, as well as location. I don't know if that really goes back to your original question, but service is huge.
Well, I'd like to thank you all again. We really learned a lot from y'all's presentations and the follow-up questions. And I think Peter's pulling us off now. Thank you very much for